Hey guys, what is up? My name is Megan and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe, and welcome to today's video, which is a combination of my April and May wrap-ups. April was the end of my bachelor's degree, so I only read one book, but May was a pretty solid reading month. Numbers wise, like I read 6 books and that's pretty good for me. However, my average rating for like the 2 months combined is like a 3.2, 3.3 stars. I had my first 1-star book in literal years, but I also found my first 5-star of 2023. So I think for this one we are going to go in order of my lowest rated book to my highest rated book, and I will have timestamps in the video if you want to navigate to hear my thoughts on specific books only. Without further ado, let's hop on in. For those of you who have seen my TBR jar picks, my TBR vlog, which brought a lot of new faces, hello, you would know that I found my first 1-star read within that vlog, and I was not expecting it to turn out that way. That book is Founded on Temptation by Kat Singleton. If you've been here before, you would know that this is the second book in a series called the Mixtape series, and the first book I had loved, raved about, gave it 5 stars. This, however, was a 1-star for me, for a variety of reasons. The entire plot line of this is that we follow the main protagonist in the first book, her best friend, and the male protagonist's bodyguard, as they are like rock star slash celebrity romances. And basically they have a few encounters where they have really intense chemistry. They sleep together, then they're apart for a long time, they come back together, they sleep together, they try to make it work out, it's not really working out because like they're not committing and it's causing like drama. And then they realize they can't live without each other and they're fully in love, but you don't see any of the character development within that story, and it's just them sleeping together a bunch of times. You do understand they have chemistry, I will give the author that, but the plot is just them hooking up and then being toxic, and I don't vibe with those kinds of books. But it's also the fact that our main characters go through the worst trope within romance, and I think everybody, or like 90% of people, agree on that, what that is. I'm not going to go into spoilers for this because some of you are going to want to read it, but I detest that trope with like a burning passion within my soul. I cannot stand that trope in romance or any other book. And so when I realized what the author was doing and then I read it on page, it was like this anger just came over me, and I read the rest of this book and it just became a 1-star. Like, I cannot recommend this book. I will recommend the first book in the series, absolutely, but this, it was boring, it was bland, the characters were annoying, and then you throw in that trope, it's 3 strikes you're out. Like, honestly, terrible. That was my rant. The next book I have to talk about, I have actually sold already. I've donated it. I unhauled it. I didn't want it in my life anymore, and that is The Life Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This I originally gave a 2.75, and then when I went back on my review and gave it a 2-star, this was not the kind of thriller for me. It essentially follows a main character who, at the start of this book, she's a dog walker in this really rich community, and then she ends up in this kind of like meddling situation where she's like stealing from her clients. She's a very unlikable main character, and she gets enthralled in this romance with this dude whose wife was apparently killed, and then it's like this whole thriller in a rich community. I hated our main character. I thought the plot line sucked, and that the ending and all of it was just like, it didn't make sense to me. I don't think it's the way it should have ended. I was very displeased with the plot twist, and the fact that our main character was so unlikable and like an unreliable narrator at the same time just made it worse. I have a hard time explaining how badly I hate this book and why I hate it so much, but just know that I'm not a fan of this. I will not pick up more Rachel Hawkins, I think. It was just very predictable, but at the same time, none of it made sense. I'm like, why did you choose this direction? And then we would get the point of view of other people like once in a while, and I thought that that was fun, but in the end it didn't really do much for the story. Very disappointed by that one, and yeah, not a fan. Then we have My Love Mix-Up Volume 2. This is, as I said, the second volume in a manga series that I have started reading it slowly, and I gave this one 3.5 stars. I think it was a great volume, but obviously manga is very short, so it's hard to create this like huge connection to the plot and the characters. So I think as these volumes go on and I read more, I'll obviously love them even more. But I really love this story, and it's one of the first mangas that like really got me into reading manga and wanted me to like try more and continue with these characters. So I think it's doing a lot of things really great. I feel like the pacing in this for a manga is really nice as well. If you don't know what My Love Mix-Up is about, it follows a couple of main characters, and this whole story revolves around the fact that like they're all in school together. One girl has this eraser and there's like a name on it, and so people think that like she's crushing on this person, but it's like a whole mix-up, and I don't want to go into spoilers because I feel like this is very easily spoiled, but like friendships blossom out of that, and then it's kind of like them navigating relationships within like this school context, and there are some LGBTQ elements in here as well, and just like discovering your identity and questioning your sexuality, as well as like making friends and being in school. It's a lovely manga series. I really like all her characters. I think like they all have this one thing that you're like, oh my god, like I love them. It kind of reminds me of how I feel when I read Heartstopper. Obviously I have a bigger attachment to Nick and Charlie, but I feel like as the volumes go on I will grow very fond of all these characters, and I'm definitely rooting for specific couples already, and it's just such a fun time. And yeah, it's not like a book I think about every day, but when I read it I'm like super invested and super happy to be reading that specific book. And I do recommend this if you're like me and getting into manga slowly and you like romance books. This is definitely a great entry point. Then another book I read for my TBR, Jar Picks My TBR, is Like a Love Song. This is by Gabriella Martins, and this was a really fun time. I gave this a 3.75 stars. This is a YA celebrity fake dating novel. Essentially it follows a main character who is Brazilian. This is own voices as well, which is great, and she lives in America and she's kind of getting her big break as a singer. However, she gets dumped very publicly by her boyfriend who is also in the industry, and she kind of like loses it a little bit, and so in order to kind of put out that fire she ends up fake dating this British indie film star. And at first like they have a kind of meet cute, but they don't really hit it off, and then they realize that they've been set up together by their publicist and they become friends, and it goes into a romance. Obviously this is light and fluffy, it's YA, there's no steam or anything, but I felt like it was really well done. And the topic of being Brazilian within America and that how that affects you, and the repercussions, and how hard it is to be in the spotlight with that identity, and all the pressure that comes from your family and your fans, and just everything else I found was so well done. And I really loved the love interest in this book as well. He's such a cinnamon roll, he's super close to his family, and I think that that was a beautiful thing to see in a YA book. And our main character is also very close to her mother, which was refreshing because I feel like in YA books parents just don't exist, which is an odd thing. So yes, I really love this. It's a great book. Obviously I don't read as much YA anymore, so like, is it an all-time favorite? No, hence the 3.75, but is there a fault to this book? I don't think so. I feel like it was short, it was sweet. It's a great book if you're in a reading slump, or if like me you like fake dating or celebrity concepts within your books. I feel like it hit a lot of fun tropes while talking about important topics, and it was a really fun time. Then we have a 4-star book, and that is the 5th Pages & Co. books, Pages & Co. The Treehouse Library by Anna James. This is the 5th book in a middle grade series that I have absolutely adored, and I've read all of these books on my channel if you want to hear me talk about the series more in depth. Obviously I'm not going to go into too much about this because it is the 5th book in a series, but I will say it is one of my favorite installments within the entire series, especially because this series is divided in 2 like arcs of 3 different books. In the first 3 books we follow Matilda, everybody calls her Tilly, and basically Tilly is a book wanderer, which means that she can go within books or she can bring characters out of books, and that's like a really cool thing to explore. And within the series, we follow her on different adventures and quests along with her friend, and we go into a bunch of different children's classics. Now the fourth, fifth, and sixth books follow Milo. We also do see Tilly, but Milo is really the main character, and I can't really go into the plot line of why we follow Milo because it would spoil the whole first 3 books, but it's very interesting, and I feel like this book was very, very well done. And even though they were children's classics I'm not super familiar with, we saw Robin Hood and The Secret Garden, I thought the adventure and the commentary on children's classics and the fact that some of them, like the Secret Garden, are outdated and that they do have problematic elements within them, and all of those discussions and how it was brought upon to the children in this book, and I feel like to the middle grade readers as well, was phenomenal. The pacing of this book was straight on, and I just really loved where the story is going. We are really in the peak of the story because the 6th book will be the last, so things need to unravel to be resolved by the end, and I just feel like it was action-packed. We saw a little bit more of Tilly and Oscar, who was Tilly's friend, and we saw Milo and his friend as well, and it was just wonderfully crafted. I really love Anna Jane's writing. I hope she continues to write more children's series after she is done with this, because it's beautiful. I feel like it's fun. You're really entertained. These books are beautiful. They have beautiful illustrations in them as well, and I cannot recommend this series enough. Like, I feel like it, even though I've seen some people talk about it, I still feel like it's underhyped, and I would recommend reading it if you're into middle grade, if you're into like books within books and those kinds of things. Chef's kiss. The next book is a book I gave 4.25 stars, and that is Fireborn by Aisling Fowler. I will not spend too much time on this book because I have a full review up on my channel if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts. This is yet again a middle grade series, but this is the first book, and it follows a main character named 12, and essentially 12 is a huntling within this hunting lodge. And what a huntling is essentially children who have given up their identities. Usually it's because something has happened with their families, or they by choice go into this hunting lodge, and they begin their learning process to become a hunter and defend the community of all the creatures that kind of live outside of it, and there are a lot. Now at the beginning of this book, 12 is like, I guess, sort of settling into that setting, and she is very much an outsider. She doesn't have a lot of friends within this cold setting. Also, it's like a polar fantasy, which I love that. And at the beginning of this book, another one of the huntlings, 7, goes missing, and 12 takes it upon herself to go and find 7 and figure out what has happened to her. And 2 other of the huntlings, 5 and 6, actually follow 12, and they go on this journey within the frozen forest, and they fight a bunch of creatures, and they try to find the missing huntling. And it talks about a lot of different things. There's some trigger warnings for like losing your parents, because it is a big theme within this book. But honestly, I highly recommend this. It is a great start to the series. There are 2 books currently out, and if you want more information, more of my thoughts, go see that review. It's only like 6 minutes long, and I feel like I did a good job recapping all of my thoughts. Now, the last full book I finished in the month of May, and my first 5-star read, is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This I also talked about pretty extensively in a vlog, which I will try to link either in the cards or the description for you guys. But this was a solid 5 stars, and I bawled my eyes out reading this. I know it's not everyone's favorite Emily Henry, or favorite in general, and I don't know if I would necessarily market this as a full-on romance. It does have a happy ending, but this essentially follows a main character who traditionally goes on a week trip with her friends, and within that friend group was the man she was engaged to. They met in college and had been together for like 8 years. However, they are currently not together anymore. They have broken up, but their friends do not know about it, and so our main character and that friend essentially fake date and pretend to be together during that week, and it is a second chance romance. And I think the romance is done phenomenally well, and I really rooted for the characters. Like, I really wanted them to end up together, and I found myself loving both of them. And I feel like a big reason of that is because we see flashbacks of these characters when they were in college and how they met and how they end up falling in love, and you also see the reasons why they're not together anymore. And unlike a lot of second chance romances, for me this one made sense. This book talks a lot about the transition from college to adulthood and the impact that this has on friendships and relationships, and the transitional period where you kind of lose your student identity and then forge a new identity, and how that can kind of create rifts in your relationship because everybody's going different places, and it's hard to maintain friendships when you're in your late 20s, early 30s, and it's all about kind of finding what you want and kind of trying to make that work within your friendships. And it was just a lot of discussions on that, on growing up, on expectations put on yourself by parents and society and your friends, and I feel like it was such a well done conversation. And a lot of people on TikTok say, like, if you're the oldest child, you will probably relate to this, or if you struggle with mental health, you'll probably relate to this. And I could not agree more. I'm not an oldest child, but I can see why people say that, because of the pressures that are usually put on older children within a household to succeed and become these, like, successful lawyers and doctors and all of these things. And I feel like Emily Henry did such a good job at combining that with a romance story and also a story of friendships. And it was beautiful to see all of these friends and how much and how deeply they cared for each other, even though they had some disagreements. And it was just fun to see them about their week and how the romance kind of rekindled within that time as well. It was beautiful. It was well done. To me, it deserves a 5-star. First of the year, very happy. Now, before I leave you guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about the books I'm currently reading. I had started Scandar and the Phantom Rider, but I have not been in the proper headspace to read that. I want to be in a happy, joyful headspace when I start that. So I have put that down, and I am currently in the middle I'm currently in the middle of 2 books, one of them being Nick Blake and the Remarkables, The Manifest of Prophecy by Angie Thomas. This is Angie Thomas's first foray into middle grade, as well as being the first book in a series. I'm currently just a little over 100 pages in, and so far it is a very strong start, and I'm really enjoying myself with this one. This follows a main character named Nicole, but her nickname is Nick, and essentially she is a remarkable, and what that means is that she has powers, and essentially it's like remarkables and non-remarkables. She is a remarkable, and she knows about this and knows about the world, but doesn't know how to use those powers because her dad has yet to teach her. At the beginning of this book, it is Nick and her dad, and that's kind of like the way it has always been. So you see kind of their relationship and Nick struggling with the fact that she has yet to learn about her powers. And so within this story, Nick's dad gets taken away, and it is up to Nick as well as her friends, what we can see on the cover as well, and her little bloodhound, which is adorable, to find her dad and maybe other people as well. Throwing that out there. And it's really fun. I feel like the magic and the setting is really well done, and it's like very made up, but it makes sense. And I feel like Angie Thomas did a great job at establishing that magical baseline within the book, even though I feel like none of her other books are magical. This one is really fun, and it also talks about the history of Black people in Michigan and just in general. It discusses slavery and so many other things, but it is very accessible because this is for a middle grade audience, and I feel like it's doing an incredibly good job. I'm learning things as I'm reading, and I'm having a really fun time doing so. Ideally, I would like to finish this in the next couple of days because it is now June and I failed, but it's okay. And the other book, and the reason I haven't finished Nick Blake and the Remarkables, was it on any of my TBRs? No. Should I be reading that right now? No, because it is massive. But it is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. If you haven't seen my book haul, this was gifted to me by a friend, and I am finished with part 1, so I'm like almost 200 pages in, and honestly, it looks like no progress was made. However, I will say I am really loving this so far. Honestly, it's giving me 5-star feels. And I don't read fantasy. I don't read this kind of fantasy, and I usually don't get 5-star feels, but I'm loving this so far. I am eating it up. Like, I've been reading this for 2 days now, and I've gone 200 pages in, which is unheard of. Am I gonna try to recap the summary for you guys? Absolutely not. I just wanted to let you know that I'm reading this. I am 200 pages in. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm questioning my life as a reader. I especially like the girls' perspective that we had in that first part. I will not pronounce their names because I haven't listened to the audiobooks and I have no idea how their names sound, so I'm not going to do myself dirty, but I love her perspective, and in some ways she reminds me of my favorite bookish character, which is Audrey Rose from Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and I'm obsessed with her. Absolutely obsessed. I also love the kind of like fairy thing in this book as well. Very poor descriptions, but I'm loving this. This book is filled with beautiful quotes and writing, and I think I'm becoming a Brandy Sandy stan. So, didn't see that coming, but I will obviously keep trucking this, like, through this. Who knows when I'll finish. So those were all my updates on my April and May reading. I hope this wasn't too chaotic and that you kind of got a gist for what I would recommend and not recommend you read out of this pile. So that's it for this video. Leave a sword emoji if you've made it this far, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.